EricSwahnRacing.com podcast number 100. Number 101. We are over 100 already. I think it's maybe 102. Uh, 103. Brian Snooks.
Nick from Nick's Motorcycle Suspension Tuning.
Number 105. This is number 106, I believe. Mark Cowan. 106 with Joseph Hansen, Joe Hansen of Electric Eye Images. So today we got Neil Scalf, and I believe this is podcast 107 or 8. Losing track of the numbers already. We got Jason Wojnowski, I think it is. So EricSwahnRacing.com podcast, I think is number 109. All right, just finished up packing, leaving for Virginia International Raceway, VIR, Alton, Virginia. Heading down there, taking California Superbike School as a student. And then the goal is, it's a job interview. It's an evaluation to become a coach for them. So this is my friend's 2008 ZX6R Kawasaki. Letting me use it for the weekend. I'll be heading out in a couple minutes here. Just finished up packing and driving about 11 hours. Getting there tonight, camping, and riding tomorrow. Number 109, I think, with Jeff O'Barry.
109 already.
So getting up there, triple digits. 111 with Sophia Oberlander.
Tell people it rhymes with a bagel.
All right, so today I believe it's going to be episode 112. I got EricSwahnRacing.com podcast number 112 with Chandler Slagle, just like bagel.
Yeah, no worries. It's Wesley Lakis. Last name's always the hard one.
Wesley Lakis.
Yeah.
And this is the EricSwahnRacing.com podcast. Well over 100, I think maybe 110s. Something like that. So I'm losing track because I already have some of them are published, but some of them I still need to edit in the queue, so it gets confusing. Number 114 with Nick Kinsella. It's going to be in 100-teens, and then we got Suelio Almeida today. And thank you for coming on. You're a big guy in social media network I've found on Instagram, and you have a ton of driving tips and coaching. From sim racing, and it looks like you've made the switch to real car driving as well. Hi, my name is Eric Swahn. I'm highly involved in the motorsports industry. I own and operate ESR, Eric Swann Racing. ESR has many parts. I sell racing parts online, have a podcast with over 100 episodes. I'm a sponsored professional level racer, work as a motorcycle riding coach for multiple organizations, a race official, motorcycle test rider, and produce marketing and advertising for businesses. After hundreds of hours of podcasting, I'm interested in using my voice commercially for broadcasting, audiobooks, commercials, voice acting, and other opportunities that may arise. Please consider using me, Eric Swann, for your next audio voiceovers. Head over to EricSwahnRacing.com for more information. How's it going, Jason?
All right, how you doing today?
Excellent. Good to talk with you. This is the EricSwahnRacing.com podcast, I believe number 116 with Jason Carbone. I am Jason Anthony, also known as. So thanks for coming on, talking to me for an hour or so today. And yeah, so tell me a little bit about your story. You're from the West Side, is that right?
Well, I'm currently living in California. Been here since 2016. Before that, I was in Hawaii for about 11 years. Been in the Marine Corps for 16 years, so that's why I moved around a bit.
Yeah.
Originally from New York, and then I got out of there when I was about 26. Joined the Marine Corps and just kind of did that for a while.
So tell me about your experience with the Corps. What's that like?
It was interesting. It of course had its ups and downs, but it was something that I was really passionate about doing. My grandfather and my uncle were both Marines. Uncle was in actually I ended up getting stationed with the same battalion that my uncle was with during Vietnam. So
oh wow, what are the odds of that?
That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was really kind of like just a chance thing. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It had its ups and downs. I was in the infantry for most of my career. Kind of came in on the tail end of Iraq, so we got to experience that a little bit. Went to Afghanistan, and then after that, I became an instructor, which was one of the coolest jobs ever. I was a instructor for our advanced infantryman's course, so that was a good time.
Sounds like a good place to be, given the orders instead of having to do everything, right?
Yeah, it was still challenging. It was more challenging than taking the orders. So the longer you stay in, the more challenging it gets, I think.
And then you have to figure out, well, how do you deal with this maybe difficult person in a tactful way without being rude and like saving face
Yep.
and all this stuff.
Yeah, and that got tougher over time too, because we had to kind of handle everybody with kid gloves, so to speak, a little bit more.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm sure it's more female, and there's like a meshing of the genders that's happening more now.
there is now, and I experienced that a little bit when I got to California because my job changed a little bit. But coming up in the infantry for the first 11 years of my career, I didn't have to deal with any of that. I didn't have to, kind of adjust to any of that stuff. So now the class that I was teaching, the course that I was teaching in Hawaii, now they're kind of mixed, male and female Marines. So I can't imagine the challenge those guys have, and I don't envy them.
Yeah. So what's your thought on the whole co-ed military army interface?
It's I've got a lot of thoughts on that, and I don't think I've quite distilled down what my position is on it 100%. It's I think eventually it's got to happen. There's got to be integration. That's just the way the world works now. But we need to be prepared for it before we push it, if that makes any sense. Just saying we got to do this and we got to do it now, and then you start pushing everybody into these courses before you prepare the staff, the instructors, and everything like that for how to deal with it, and then have the facilities in place and everything like that. So I think we place more emphasis on inclusion rather than doing it right and making sure we were set up for it and everybody was prepared for it.
Sure, yeah. It's an interesting topic, man. Everything is changing in the world. It seems like, I mean, it's
is.
always changing, but it seems like things are accelerating faster now.
It is. And then you've got some of us who feel like the military is a completely different thing than the rest of the world, and the same rules shouldn't apply, and we shouldn't be worried more about inclusion. It should be mission oriented and stuff like that. But,
Sure, whatever it takes to get the job done, right?
yep. But you can't stop that snowball from rolling now.
For sure. So what's going on in your daily life, your personal life, aside from work?
Daily is just actually just trying to get back to work. I've been out of the Marine Corps since February. Took some time off. Taking a class right now in coding, just to get kind of familiar with that. Just kind of learning that on my own while I've got some time. And then that's it. Just doing a little bit of track riding here and there, not as much as I used to be. And yeah, that's about it.
So
Getting ready to get back to school.
Yeah, sounds like coding computers is not going to be going away anytime soon, I don't think. So
No.
it's probably not a bad thing to learn. I have websites and do online sales through EricSwahnRacing.com and Shop ESR, but I'm not a coder. Like, I can do basic things like write some HTML for like my packing slip, but that's pretty much it. So they've really made it. A lot of these websites like Shopify, for example, have dumbed it down in a way that someone like me can go on there and sell things online now. But if you really want to tweak it and customize, you got to know all the back end features. And what language are you learning right now?
We just started with HTML, and then just now moving over to get more familiarized with Python. So
Okay.
we're very, very basic right now.
Yeah, that's all right. It's probably way farther ahead than I am.
Yeah, and if my thought is that even if I'm not using it directly, I want to understand it at least have a basic understanding of which which I never have.
Sure. And there's tons of coding jobs out there. I'm kind of in transition myself, looking for work, and yeah, if you're um an engineer of computers, basically, computer science or a coder, there's jobs everywhere, and you can do that
Oh yeah,
remotely a lot of the time. You don't have to be there, which is a kind of nice feature.
that's what I want.
Yeah, being able to
I don't want
travel.
to be glued to a location now.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you've done a lot of traveling with your job right now, so it'd be cool to continue that trend and still get paid while you're doing it.
Yeah, and one of the things I'd love to do is I got a friend who he kind of took a year off to travel around the country and like visit some of his like online acquaintances and stuff like that, people he's met through Instagram and whatnot, and go out and ride with those people and stuff. And I always thought that would be like a cool thing to do after retirement.
Heck yeah. I have a family member, a cousin of mine who was a school teacher, a math teacher, and was kind of in an inner city neighborhood teaching, and those students aren't always the most attentive or polite or any of those things. So he was like, he hated his job. He loved teaching, but not in that sort of environment. It was very difficult. So
Right.
he got into coding. He took, I think, a 6 or 8 month course, and now he's
Mhm.
making like double what he was making before at a job he enjoys way more. So it's like you don't have to go to school for years and years and years to get a good coding job, it seems like.
No, you don't. I think it's just like anything else where, if, you could spend, you know, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, brushing up on whatever your preferred vocation is, or getting a degree or something like that, and then still get no work. So it's kind of about, it's about the opportunity, right? Like where you can plug in.
Yeah,
So, and
if you get a gender studies degree, might have a hard time using that degree. What's the point? It's nice to have,
yeah.
master's degree on your resume, but if it serves no purpose, like, does it really
Yeah.
matter?
Yeah, and I think what most employers are looking for with those degrees is just your willingness to commit and put in the work and do that stuff. And it maybe just speaks to your work ethic, if anything. But it seems kind of silly that you get a degree in get a friend who's got a degree in nano engineering, and he was looking for work for 2 years, and then he finally got a job in a clean room that had absolutely nothing to do with his degree, but he excelled at it.
Yeah.
So it spoke to his work ethic. I think that was about it.
Yeah, I think it does open some doors if you just have that completion factor, because they don't want someone who's just going to start and stop things. They want someone who's going to be there for the long term, because
Hmm.
it takes money to train an employee,
It does.
usually thousands of dollars until they're proficient enough to be like on your own completely or to be able to
Yep.
train someone else. So they don't want you coming in and out too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And you're a big bike guy, motorcycle, track guy, sounds like. So what's your
Yep.
track experience been like?
So since I got out of the Marine Corps, I've only done a couple of track days, but prior to that, when I moved to California, that was, getting ready to move to California was like, I couldn't wait, like, because the only thing I wanted to do was get here and start going to the track and then get my race license and
Yeah.
start racing a little bit, because in Hawaii we don't have any tracks, so we're just all like hooning around on the mountains out there, and like, you know, it's fun, and I met a lot of great people out there through the community doing that. But I just wanted to get back to the mainland, get to the track. So yeah, in February, was it February or January of 2017 was my very first track day out at
Okay.
Chuckwalla,
Nice.
and of course it rained.
Ah.
First track day after riding around in the mountains and stuff out here, and I was like, yeah, gonna go to B Group, and the organization I went out there I signed up with to ride with. Their B Group was kind of fast, a little faster than I expected, or maybe I was just a lot slower than I expected.
Like an
Um,
intermediate group?
yeah, and yeah, I went out there, and rain started coming down. I was, just getting dunked on by everybody, and I think Benny Solis was out there just ripping around, and we were watching him just in total amazement. Um, yeah, and then did my second track day with uh, another organization that you had a much faster demographic, so that was that was a pretty big wake up call. And then did a few more, got my race license, and raced at CVMA for it was about 2.5 years, 2.5 years before I started slowing down with that and transitioning more to just control riding.
Yeah. So you're a coach now, it sounds like, for one of the organizations.
I haven't been out for a bit. So the last organization I rode with was her track days. So
Okay.
it's mostly it's more like a female centric track day. They're kind of trying to get more of the ladies that are more like canyon riders or street riders, and who might be maybe a little intimidated by coming out and jumping into like the intermediate groups and stuff like that with all the guys who are like sandbagging. So you get a lot of sandbaggers in our group, right?
Yeah, that definitely happens. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm not really ready. I'm not a racer to move up to advanced, but you don't have to be a racer. Like I'd say the majority of people in advance are not racers, unless it's like a
Right.
practice day before a race event. That might be different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to dispel the rumor or the thought of, just it's so hard to go to the track. I don't think it's hard to go to the track. You could take your street bike out there. Now you could ride it to the track, but I would recommend you don't, because you could have a mechanical or a tire puncture, which is super rare, but you could fall down and not be able to ride it back, which is kind of leaves you stranded, usually a couple hours from your house. But put it in a bed of a pickup truck. You could rent a U-Haul trailer for $40. Like you could usually, if you meet some guys at the track, you can carpool with them. A lot of people have extra space in their trailers, but you don't have to have a race bike. Like my first track bike was a street bike that I just taped up the license plate with painter's tape, put tape over the mirrors and the turn signals, take out that fuse so it's not lit up when you're on the brakes. That's pretty much it. I mean, take the kickstand off eventually, but that's not even required. Safety wire is nice to have, but not required for novice. So they allow you to go out there. But basically a street bike, no modifications needed. You don't have to have an exhaust or a built engine or fancy, carbon fiber parts. Just take your regular bike out there and have fun and learn. And you will learn more in an hour or two of being on track than you will in 10 years on street riding.
That's so true. And yeah, that misconception that people have that it's going to be so costly and difficult to get out to the track. I mean, I just saw a conversation on one of the local pages here in SoCal that guys said, I want to get out to the track, but I don't have money for all the extras and parts that I need and stuff like that. I said, well, what do you need? And he's like, well, I don't know. I have to get like, body work and like rear sets and all this other stuff. Like, no, dog, just make sure she's not leaking and bring your clapper out,
Yeah, for sure. And there's tons of people selling race suits that are used. I would try to buy a new helmet. I wouldn't go the used helmet route, because really they do have an expiration date. Now track days don't really check your helmet dates, I don't think, but race organizations do. And for racing, I'd recommend a helmet within 5 years of the manufacture date. But yeah, you can buy used gear all day on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or any of those, or from your friends, or I would highly recommend anybody who wants to go to the track and is scared about it, just go to the track for a track day. Look up the dates for a local track near you and just go there. You might be a $15-$20 gate fee. There's no tickets. Like you don't go to will call. It's just you show up and there's a small gate fee. And
I try to get people out to racing all the time. Like just come out and check it out, and you will want to get involved.
And it's an open pit. Like there's no VIP section. You can literally walk around the cold pit lane and walk around the paddock, the pits, and just talk to people and see what they're doing. Some people are running, high-end race bikes with tire warmers and slicks and bike stands and all the different things that you could possibly need. But some people are out there with no tire warmers, street tires, their street bike with painter's tape over it, like I mentioned, and it's beautiful to see because there's just such a huge levels. There's so many levels out there of people. Somebody wants to, go to the track for the first time, maybe do a couple track days a season. Some people are out there, 80, 90 days a year at the track.
Yep.
So it's a huge skill gap, but that's why we have different sessions. So if
Yeah.
you're new at it, you go in novice, and there's coaches there who usually, can then teach you and help you get better. And then you got the professionals, or sometimes people coming over from other countries to go race that track. So it's all over
Which
the place.
that's a really cool thing to see when you get somebody that comes out that's like, oh, I've been watching this guy on YouTube, or I've seen this guy race, and you get to come out and just watch the things that those guys do, and it's just so far above your level of where you're at. It's wild.
Yeah, and
I mean, when
I welcome it. I think it's
Yeah.
great. You see like Benny Solis come out and whoop on everybody, but I don't find that demoralizing. I'm like, okay, he's on
cool.
pretty much the same bike as me. I could do that too, is what goes through my mind.
Yeah, that's probably one of the one of the coolest things when you realize that is like these bikes aren't any different. It's just your mindset, your training, your feel, just all those things that have gone in. But trying to think of where I was going with that. Coachability. Yeah. That's probably one of the at least it was one of the biggest challenges for me coming into it, like coming in and having the just being able to, like, drop any kind of like fear or ego to go over and talk to one of the staff, or to talk to somebody else and be like, hey man, like, this is happening. Do you have a suggestion, or can you take me out and see how messed up I really am and fix me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's at first it's really nerve-wracking, because I'm going up and talking to like the fastest guy here on purpose, because I'm like, I can learn something from him. And
Yep.
and the first couple of times you do that, like, oh no, I don't want to feel stupid. But at some point he was in your shoes doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So it's nobody really makes fun of you unless it's your friend,
Yeah. And there's a lot of different personalities out there too that um that you'll run into. Like, some people are a little more nice about the way they say things, or they'll look at another rider and be like, all right, how can I communicate to this rider to get them to better absorb the information? And some people just don't give a damn, and they're just super, super abrasive. And when it comes to that environment, I didn't mind people being really abrasive with me. I had one suspension tuner that I think it was my third track day. I won't mention his name, but anybody who knows me knows who I'm talking about. He I learned a bit from him. I learned a good bit from him that day, and I think it was because just he's super, super abrasive. And the first thing he says when you roll up is like, well, why did you do that? Well, that's friggin' stupid,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, is it? Like, why? So I asked why, instead of just walking away and be like, that guy's a jerk,
Yeah.
So, and we had a conversation. He didn't get any less abrasive as the conversation went on, but I did learn quite a bit from him, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you need a smack in the face or a wake up call if like you're riding like an idiot, and you're
Totally.
about to crash. Like, I'm doing a coaching program, I'm going through all the homework and exams and things like that, and it says in there, even, if your student's about to crash, you need to not beat around the bush. You need to say, hey, look, you're about to hurt yourself if you keep doing this, or somebody else, or the machine. Like, it's going to cost thousands of dollars if you keep doing this. So
Yeah.
that wakes people up sometimes, and you don't have to be rude about it, but like, hey, do you realize what you're doing out there? Most, if you're just coming up and you're learning all the different things, even an expert can make bad mistakes, and keep doing bad habits that could cause a crash. So it's like, hey,
Definitely.
you gotta realize what you're doing out here. Do you know that this is happening?
Yeah. And I think one of my biggest challenges as a control rider. So worked with Two Wheels track days for a long time here in SoCal. Love that organization. Serge and Martine were absolutely fantastic to work with, and the people that come out to ride with that organization, we see the same faces all the time, and they always bring new people out. But one of my biggest challenges was kind of going from how I talk to people in the Marine Corps when they're, doing something wrong or placing somebody else in danger, to, pulling a rider off the track and talking to them in a way that, they're not only going to they're not only going to understand what I'm saying, but they're going to be receptive to it, and they're going to think about that afterwards, and then, go out the next session and I see them, and they're not doing what I told them not to do, or they're doing what I told them to do, and it's all working out,
Yeah,
So,
it's like watching these little birds learn how to fly, and by the end of the day, they get better, and they've got smile from ear to ear, and it's
yep.
just awesome to see. And if people plateau, I think most of the time they get frustrated with it, and they just like, I'm trying so hard, but I'm not getting any faster. What gives? And
Hmm.
it can make people stop wanting to come to the track. So I think coaching is a crucial factor for keeping people in the sport and keeping people safe and not getting injured and keeping their
Yep.
bikes shiny side up.
Yeah,
I think it's really important.
definitely. Absolutely agree.
And so what kind of bike, I'm sure you've had multiple, but what kind of bike did you start on at the racetrack?
Track, I started on my R6. Had a 2008 R6 that I still have. I bought that when I was in Hawaii. I think I bought that in 2013,
Okay.
and as soon as I got to California, the first thing I did was look for some race body work.
Yeah.
So I didn't, by the time I got out to the track, I didn't, I wasn't going out there and like, the street body work and everything like that. I kind of planned ahead for that a little bit. So yeah, picked up some armor bodies and busted out some vinyl wrap and wrapped it up. And I still have that bike. Got another R6 that I've been kind of dragging my feet on building, and an R6 sitting in my trailer waiting to ride again. That I believe the motor was put together by Gary Dean. I can't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, got the R6s, got 3 of those, and then I have my Suzuki DRZ, my 2014 DRZ 400 SM.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just got that in. I think I got that in May, and then took it up to Fresno to go ride up some trails with a buddy, and then took it to Thunderhill West, which was weird.
Yeah, so this year I got into Supermoto land, and
Oh yeah,
I was definitely considering the DRZ Suzuki, but it's still it's not fuel injected, it's carbureted. I'm like, the
yeah,
2022 DRZ is still carbureted. What's happening here? Well, it's
it's
cheaper
insane.
probably, but so I went the route of the Kawasaki KLX 300 Supermoto, so a little bit less
Nice.
on the power, but still goes 98 miles an hour. It's still pretty quick, but it is fuel injected. It is a little bit newer technology, so I don't have to be worried about the cold starts so much and things like that,
Yeah,
and messing with all the different settings. But very similar machines.
yeah.
Um,
I think
and
the DRZ is a pretty heavy bike too, isn't it?
I
Like,
think it's a
as
little
far
bit
as
heavier.
supermotors
It's
go.
bigger engine size, so it's going to have a
Mhm.
little bit more. But they're not technically race bikes, but you can race them.
Yeah, yeah. It was a little weird having that on at Thunderhill. Granted, it was a bit of a short track, but just going down that front straight, man, with no stabilizer and like that long front suspension and everything, it was just the whole way down the front, just wiggling. And every time I pulled into the pits, like people are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine."
It's normal. Yeah, it just does that.
Yeah. Everywhere else on the track it was fantastic, but just down that front straight, man, it was a little sketchy. But
Yeah, it's so well. It's lighter than a middleweight sport bike, so that's what
mhm.
I'm used to most of the time. And yeah, after about 83 miles an hour, if you're not extremely sensitive on the bars, even mine will start to shake just a little bit. Of like,
Yeah,
what is happening here? There's no trucks in front of me. There's no like wind. It's just that's the nature of the beast. And sometimes you get in those wobbles. I'm like, I feel like I could probably lose it if it gets away from me here.
yeah. I'm sure if a little bit of wind hit you or something, or you hit a little bump in the track, like it might get a little more sketchy, and you might have to run off. I don't know.
But it hasn't happened yet. I've done 4 track days on the Supermoto kart tracks, and there's one by my house that's they call it the Triple Crown. So there's a kart track pavement section, there's a motocross section with jumps and whoops and berms, and then there's a flat track section, and we loop them all together into one lap.
That's dope.
which is wild. We're all on slicks or DOTs. I'm on DOTs, not running warmers for those.
Yeah.
Cool off so fast in the dirt anyway. But
Mhm.
man, my buddies are all out there on their like Husqvarna 450s, FS 450s, and I'm over
That
here in the
bike's an
300,
animal.
and they're sending it like getting 20-foot gaps, and I'm over here like 2 feet off the ground, like I'm doing good, you know. But man, it's a whole new beast. It's a whole new animal in the dirt. It's a
It
different
is.
body position. You can't be hanging off the same way. And I'm just learning in the dirt. So, but it has a tremendous amount of grip in the dirt if you ride it right. It's pretty
Surprisingly, right?
astounding. It's pretty surprising how much you can get it in the dirt and still have grip.
Yep. Yeah, I took the DRZ up to the mountains with a couple of buddies, and everybody else was on knobbies, and I got Q3 pluses on it. And I mean, I kept up pretty good. I know they were going a bit slower for me or whatever, but I kept up pretty good and going through soft sand, like going uphill and stuff like that. It did a lot better than I thought. I never dropped the bike once, which I was pretty stoked about.
There you
So,
go.
yeah, but riding in the dirt, man, is I I think that's something that we all need to do more. Dirt, sand,
Oh
stuff like
yeah.
that. I did a training day with Racer's Edge before one of the CDMA rounds. I was coming back from a really bad crash. Couldn't get my head together, so went in, did some training, and one of the coaches told me what I should be doing is like getting out in the dirt, getting out in the sand, and just learning what it feels like to let that front tire move around and find traction. And so I started taking my pit bike out, because Chuck Wall is just all moon dust. And so I started taking my pit bike out in between races, just getting out there, loosening up and stuff like that. And that's hugely helpful. Ran some of my best times doing that.
Oh hell yeah. I've podcasted with Aaron Stevenson of Cornerspin, a very similar type of school. It's dirt training for road racers using like XR 100s or the 110cc range bikes. And I think it's so valuable. One of the things that I'm lacking in my training is dirt. I didn't grow up riding dirt bikes like most kids do. And I was doing the soccer, hockey, baseball route as a kid, and didn't really get into motorcycles until I could afford it myself on my own. And yeah, that would have saved me from a couple dumb crashes that I had, like pulling off into the grass, like, oh, now I'm going way too fast, and now let's stupidly grab the front brake lever going 80 miles an hour in the grass. Like, well, that's not going to work out.
That never works out.
So yeah, it probably would have saved me a couple $1,000s from just having some more dirt training. But
absolutely.
yeah, I think it's so valuable. If I would have gone back, like this is coming from 11 years being at the track. If I could do it all over again, I think starting out with even a 50cc would be helpful. Move up to 100cc. I'm talking dirt bikes, and slowly progress from there. I just didn't. My heart wasn't into motocross. I'm like, why would I do motocross if that's not my love? That's not what I want to do. But
at the time we don't know any better.
Yeah,
and we just think that's kind of silly. It's not related.
Yeah, but that cross training is so important. And since then, I guess my best dirt training is I'm a championship winning mountain bike racer. So I do mountain bike racing and stuff like that. And that's similar.
That's brutal.
It's very similar, but you don't have that throttle. You can't really, you don't have that. I mean, my front brake is master cylinder, just like on a motorcycle with the fluid and everything. But
oh, really?
But it's not the same power. Like you're never going to get the same power on the throttle, on the rear tire, or the front brake as you would on a dirt bike even.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So I think that would
quite a bit
be
different.
helpful. Yeah.
We pushed that. We tried to push that a little bit in the Marine Corps with our required motorcycle training. We had the base sergeant major down here at Camp Pendleton. He tried to squeeze in. I forget how much it was going to cost, but he tried to squeeze in like a few $100,000 to build us a dirt track and buy like a bunch of like 110s or something like that to get everybody out there and do some dirt training beforehand, because he believed that it was an integral part of even just riding on the road.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of like getting 30 feet in the air, So that was kind of always a sticking point for me, literally, right? You don't want to stick
Yeah.
when you, but yeah, you could still do like flat track, and a lot of these, like what I was mentioning before, that course had maybe 2 big jumps. So it's not like they're crazy. And even if you want to stay on the ground, you could just roll over them. Nobody's going to care. Like
Yep.
it's a track day environment where there's children that might be 3 years old, and there's like elderly people who might be in their 60s or 70s even. So there's a
Yeah.
huge range, and it's not like a sport bike track day where it has maybe tough passing. It's super nice passing, like be respectful. Like some of these
Mhm.
people, it's their first track days. And it was kind of just like one group, which is kind of different. So like when you come up to a slower rider, you're like, okay, well, I'll just wait till the straightaway and get by him. He's on a 50cc bike anyway. It's like I have him a 300. It's gonna be no problem in 12 seconds for me to get by him. But
Yeah, no problem.
but it's just different environment. Sometimes they
That's
would
really
have
cool.
like pavement only for people who don't want to do the dirt, and then they have
Mhm.
another session with full supermoto, so you could do pavement and the dirt. So it was nice to have a variety of
Yeah.
it too.
SoCal Track Days, they do kind of the same thing where, well, I don't think they have, I don't think they do an asphalt only day anymore, but
Okay.
you used to be able to sign up for either asphalt only or asphalt and dirt.
Okay.
And then, of course, and then I went out one day and I didn't know they were cutting off the back section of the asphalt, and I was on my friend's FS 450, first time on an FS 450, and like, which you know how crazy that bike is,
Oh yeah.
and they're pointing everybody towards the dirt section. And I'm like, can I go that way? And they're like, nah, get in the dirt.
Yeah, man.
So,
Those shout out to Great Lakes Supermoto and Will Wildner, Wild Manufacturing. He's the guy behind it, setting up all the track days, and been out to a bunch of different ones. There's one in Clio, Michigan, just north of Flint. There's one in Jackson, Michigan, that has a Triple Crown. There's Fremont in Ohio, and there's another couple ones I'm missing off the top of my head. But yeah, it's such a blast, and the smiles to dollar ratio is off the chart. Like
huge.
it's like $40, I don't know, like maybe $60 to do a track day on a supermoto, and it's normally what, like $2,000 to do a weekend on a sport bike or something like that.
Yeah, when you put in your fuel and everything like that, and tires and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're not
Yeah.
going through tires. When you crash the bike, nothing breaks usually. Like it's usually like I crashed. Actually, Will allowed me to ride his bikes to get me out there. So he put me on his XR 100, his Cowie 250, and the full send FS 450. And man, that bike is a handful. Every time you touch the gas, it's like a wheelie monster. But yeah, I crashed the Cowie 250 a couple times, and I was like, "Oh no, I feel so bad," and nothing broke. I came back in the pits. I'm like, "Oh no, this is what happened. I fell over like 2 miles an hour in the dirt." He's like, "Go back out there." Like, I'm not worried at
Yep.
all.
Yep, they're tanks, man. It's awesome around.
They crash really well. It also helps you go 100 miles an hour slower than you would be on a sport bike.
Yeah, the speeds are much lower. But the hard lesson I got about dirt one time was that you don't slide on dirt.
You stick.
So when you hit it, you just stop. And when you getting a little older and you've got more injuries already stacked up on you, like it hurts a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. It's just fun, like pushing the limits and seeing how far you can go, and just hang out with your buddies and grabbing some beer afterwards. And it's just a community. That community is so helpful, and just fun to be around. My one of my good buddies, Carl Soltis, he's racing in Moto America. He's probably seen him on TV if you watch Super Sport Class. But
Yep.
he had a end of the season party, a second annual, and it was a bash. It was maybe about a month ago now, and we had 3 different classes. So he had backyard bracket racing on 50s in his backyard. He just set up, rope lights as the course, and we had a joker
Yep.
lap with a jump with a piece of plywood on a bunch of takeoff tires.
That's so
And
cool.
and the Joker lap was probably 15 seconds faster than the regular lap. So if you didn't take it, you're screwed. You have to send it. And
Yeah,
right,
you gotta.
and right on the ramp it said no half sends. He spray painted on there, so everybody's sending it because like, oh, I have to,
Flat out. Yeah.
And there was definitely some carnage, but they had 3 classes all on the same bikes, and only 2 people at a time because it was a fairly short course. But
Mhm.
they had the women's class, which was like 14 women in that class. They had mostly girlfriends of riders, but some real riders also. There was an amateur class and a pro class. Now, that was pretty much my first time ever riding a 50cc bike in all the riding that I've done, because I didn't just never had one. I think I rode my
Just didn't-
buddies around the pits one time, but that was about it.
Yeah,
So
not ripping through the dirt.
no, and this was all grass. There was actually very little dirt. So kind of slick, and it was a cold September night. Everybody's bundled up pretty good. We got a bonfire going and drinking
Yeah.
beers and all that. And
It's a blast.
yeah, man. So I asked him, like, what should I go in, amateur or pro? He's like, well, if you've never really raced it, I would recommend you go in amateur. So like, all right, I'll probably clean up, do pretty well in amateur. And I won pretty much every race I did except for the ones I crashed in.
Oh.
But I ended up 3rd on the podium out of a group of, I think it was 10 or 12 amateurs. And he went all out, man. He had trophies and champagne. Hey, got it right here, actually. Yeah, let's see. Take this off for a second. Yeah, I got amateur class, 3rd place.
Oh, that's
Second
legit.
annual Super Carl Send It party. Look at that. That's legit for like
That's
a
legit.
backyard hangout.
That's cool.
So I think that was actually the first time I was spraying champagne on the podium. That was fun.
That's a blast. That's so awesome.
So that was a good time. That's my latest
It's stuff
trophy.
like that where like you have the most fun, you know?
Oh yeah, it was a blast. I can't wait to do it again. Last year I didn't go because I was doing track marshal stuff over at Barber for Moto America, finishing out the season, or maybe it was Grand National Finals for Wera.
Okay.
But good time.
That's gotta be it. That's gotta be a blast. What's it like doing track marshal for Moto A?
Oh, I did 6 out of 11 of the rounds this year. So I did Daytona, Road Atlanta, Circuit of the Americas with MotoGP. Also, there was Pittsburgh and Barber, and I'm missing one of them. But yeah, it was a blast. Every organization, I've worked for 13 organizations now, from Wera, CCS, Formula One, Moto America, IndyCar, North American Talent Cup, Porsche Series, W Series, all kinds of them, and they all have different flagging rules. Every single one of them is slightly different. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what are we doing today? Like, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what your rules are. So it's usually like the difference of 1 waving yellow versus 2 waving yellows, or sometimes they don't use a debris flag, they use a rain flag, which the rain flag is the flag of Alabama. I'm not sure why. But that's what they chose. It's just a white with the red X, and but it's cool to really get up close and meet a lot of the riders in not the greatest circumstances usually. When they're crashing at the side of the track, you're not trying to make friends with them, but you're like,
Yeah.
I'm here to help you. What do you need? You need an ambulance? Are you okay? Do you want to restart?
Yeah.
And like one time I've done the Bagger Racing League, and Moto America has the baggers now, which are like 600 to 900 pound Harleys or Indian motorcycles, which are much heavier than
They're huge.
than a 600cc bike. And I think it was Michael Barnes crashed. Oh, New Jersey. I did New Jersey as well.
Mhm.
He crashed at New Jersey, and I see like gray all over his face. He's an old man, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, can you help me pick up this bike? He's like, no, they're just gonna red flag it. I'm like, all right. So we didn't even try to pick it up, and I felt so bad because I'm like, oh, we kind of caused a red flag because we didn't pick it up. But
yeah.
And then the crew comes out with a freaking crane. No joke, they came out with a crane, and the four or 5 guys in the truck didn't even try to pick it up. So I'm like, okay, well, I didn't do anything wrong then. And it was not rideable, I don't think, anymore. So
Yeah, I can imagine they sustain a bit of damage when they go down at those speeds.
Yeah, it was
'Cause,
a fast one. It was coming up right before Wheelie Hill, turn 3C, I think it was, on the
mhm.
outside there. So yeah, after they put it on a crane, I felt a little bit better that about it. But actually, I think Rispoli crashed in like 3A, and me and my buddy Joe Lipinski was in the corner with me, and we actually picked that bike up. Within one heave ho, we got it, and it worked. And
Did you guys do the whole get your back to it and deadlift it?
no, I'm not a huge back to the. I mean, you can do that. It's probably easier on your back, but I usually just run
Right.
up and grab the handlebars. And he had the tail section. I went with the bars. We got it up, just up, because it's when it's all the way over, it's completely off the tires on its side.
Yeah.
And so we got it to the tires, pushed it up 30%, and then it was like, oh, it's getting heavy. So maybe stupidly on my part, but it worked out. It could have been bad, I suppose, if it didn't go the full way. But
Yeah.
when you're grabbing from the handlebars, you don't have the best grip, especially with a
Sure.
600-pound bike. So I took my lowest hand and put it underneath the handlebar and kind of pushed it up that way. Now, if it fell back down,
Yeah.
that would have been bad. But
Yeah. But
that
at
was the
least
best way.
lifted it somewhat smartly to not injure yourself.
Yeah, so you got to use your legs, not your back, because they're very heavy. But yeah, we picked it
Yeah.
up, no problem. And unfortunately, it was red flag because it was, I think, some oil on the track, because they always leak oil as soon as they touch
Pretty
the ground.
common in that class, right?
Even if they don't crash, they usually leak oil. So,
Yeah. It's just normal with Harleys, right?
yeah, it's like, let's take the biggest bike we can find and try to race it.
It's wild what they're doing with those bikes, though. I just watching the races. I mean, there's a lot of mixed feelings about the bagger class becoming so popular and stuff, and people are like, oh well, they should put more money into superbike, but this is America,
Yeah.
and we love our cruisers, we love our Harleys, so and it's generating a lot more interest in the sport, and I think it's really really cool to watch.
I think it's a great idea, and it's great to get that segment of the bike community out to the racetrack, because like I said, I did the Bagger Racing League that was in Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Mile, a track that they haven't used for motorcycles in like 35 years. It's like a mini Daytona with banking
Mhm.
and an infield, kind of dangerous as far as the walls, but when I was there, they had fleets of Harley riders come in at different times, and that was probably the most amount of Harleys I've ever seen at a racetrack. And it was great. I mean, not all Harleys,
Yeah.
all different kinds of bikes and cruisers and supermoto and sport bikes, but the dealerships all around had really promoted the event and said, we're going to have a group ride. And they had hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of different bikes come out, all in droves. It was like, this is amazing. Like,
That's so cool.
that's because of the baggers. If the baggers weren't there, I can't guarantee, but I would highly
Yep.
think that they probably wouldn't even showed up or even known about it or cared to come.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really great for the sport and getting new eyeballs on it that probably weren't watching before. And they see the
No.
baggers, they're probably going to stick around for the superbike class, and
Definitely.
all the other classes and the junior cup, and see this girl Kayla, killing the boys in the rain.
Killing it.
It's amazing to see it go to Port. She went to Portugal recently and got on the podium. So like she's an international superstar, like 16 years old, 15. I don't know how old she is. She's pretty young.
Yeah, dude, but and watching her race against, on the international circuit was just absolutely wild. I love that stuff. Like seeing Americans go out there and race internationally is cool. But then when they do as well as that, that's you can't beat that.
She's got it, man. And from what I understand, she's been riding injured for months and still doing really well. I think she's got a torn ACL or MCL, something with her knee. She's wearing a knee brace all the time.
Mhm.
But still with that seemingly career not ending, but a bad injury, she's doing really well.
Yeah, an injury like that could, most people stop, take a step back, and want to take a break for a while and fully recover and everything. But she seems like she just kept grinding away at it, went pretty hard, and it's paying off really well. Yeah.
Heck yeah. In the rain at New Jersey, I think she was gapping the entire field by like 2 seconds a lap, and then it got red flag because someone crashed. and then she did it again. I was like, this is not a fluke.
No, no, not at all. She's consistent. It's great. But
So
like you were saying about the baggers, we kind of made me think of something. CVMA back in 2017 when I first raced, we did see a couple of Harleys come out, and they didn't have a class for them. They didn't know what to do with them. So I think at first they went by displacement, which was not a good idea. I think we had a couple of them in the super sport class with the middleweights.
yeah.
And you know, they were getting lapped. Just the difference between lap time was just insane. They shuffled them around a little bit because we didn't have enough. They didn't have enough to make their own class. And what had happened is they started shuffling them around to different classes. So I think eventually they ended up like racing with like ultralights or something like that. Whenever they only had like 2 or 3 Harleys out there or something like that. And then now I think they've got a lot more showing up. So they've got their own class when they do have enough that show up. So, and then there's when we do tech inspection for a track day, the amount of cruisers that we're seeing out there is just more and more.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily slow. Like at the Moto America level, I'm pretty sure these guys are faster than every single one of the Twins Cup bikes.
Yeah,
That's it's incredible actually. And my novice year, my first year racing, 10 years ago at Blackhawk Farms, Kyle Wyman's time on a bagger is faster than my time on a 600. So like
that hurts.
it's like, yeah, that was a different skill level, but it's imagine like you're faster than a sport bike. I mean, they have superbike forks and they're not stock at all, and they've been modified to the end limit as what's possible, but it's still like, wow, these 600-pound machines are faster than I was in my first year of racing. It's just amazing.
It's crazy. It's cool to see. It's pretty like it's inspirational for for those of us who I think are riding on super sports and can look at those lap times and be like, wow. And like you said before, like you're looking at somebody with another bike and going, hey, they're doing that on this bike, like, and I've got the same bike. Now you're looking at dudes on Harleys, on baggers, and even though they're highly modified, right? It's a bigger, heavier bike, and the center of gravity is different and everything, and they're doing it. So like it should give you a little bit more inspiration to be like, all right, well, I've got my little 300-400-pound bike or whatever, I should be able to do this.
Yeah, it's just at the end of the day, it's 2 more manufacturers, Harley and Indian, getting into the sport, or they've been into the sport, but not so much into racing, I guess, in quite a while. So it's really great to see them stepping up, and that can't be bad for the sport, right? 2 more manufacturers coming in.
Not at all, not at all. And what's the worst thing that could happen? Baggers become the premier race, the premier class for the series eventually. I don't know, if that's the worst thing that happens, then we're still racing.
I want to see both of them. I want to see every manufacturer come out with the super sport class, now the 750 model. I want to see them all come out with a 1000cc bike, sport bike, and a lightweight 400. Like, why can't we? And I don't want to get rid of the 600, but it's kind of going that way, unfortunately. But
yeah, it's a weird territory.
But yeah, I think like, where's the Harley sport bike 750? I wanna see that come out.
Yep, that would be pretty interesting.
Or the Indian, any of them. And I think it's such a shame talking about like MotoGP now. Suzuki is doing really well, and they're pulling out. It's like, why would you do that? It's like such a shame, but it all comes down to money at the end of the day. You don't know what their pocketbook looks like.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of like the way things go too. Like, a manufacturer or somebody announces that they're leaving the sport or they're pulling out of the series, and then you know, they just have this last like hurrah of just kick-ass results, you know, and you're like, why are you going? Well, the commitment's already been made. They're gone, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's becoming the Ducati show.
It really is, and I think that's pretty cool to see. I just don't want it to get boring where, you know, those guys are all out front. Suzuki, Honda, everybody else, or, you know, Yamaha, they're all kind of back of the pack, and it's just Ducati's like battling up front. But it's cool to see. It's kind of a changing of the guard, so to speak, where you know, Marquez was kind of running the show for a while, and he got hurt, and of course that left a gap open for other guys to come in and shine. But I think that's kind of something that I wanted to see from MotoGP. So this is really exciting for me to watch right now.
Yeah, and even though Ducati's been dominating a lot of the races, they haven't been dominating the series for 15 years. Since Casey Stoner 15 years ago won the championship, they haven't won one since. So yes, it's becoming like, what do they have? 6 or 8 Ducatis on the grid now, and now Alex Marquez is jumping ship from the Honda. The Honda seems like a turd. Like it.
That's a tough fight, man.
In no series is the Honda shining that I can think of, unless it's a only Honda series. It seems like such a hard bike to ride, and Marquez has been off of it for how many races this year, and he's still the top Honda guy. It's like, that's not good.
Yeah, there's definitely a problem when there's only one guy that can successfully, like, consistently ride your bike. I won't pretend to be educated enough to try to pick apart why that is. But it's just really weird that he's the only dude that can do what he does on that bike, or at least get a consistent result on that bike.
Yeah, and you know, they do have the balance of performance, you know, with World Superbike, and they try to make them as even as possible. But at the end of the day, like, the Ducati's faster. Like, there's no getting around that. It's like, is that really fair if you have a faster bike? I mean, you know, it's taken a long time to develop, and they seem like they are at the forefront of developing new technology.
Definitely.
But it is tough when you're 10 kilometers faster than the next guy.
Yeah, and when Alvaro Bautista first jumped on the Aruba IT Ducati, what was that, 2019? You know, he was killing it, and then, you know, just he would break out in front, and then he was, I don't know, what was he, like 10 seconds off the road or something like that? It was a massive margin. And then, you know, of course, protests started coming in, and they had their meetings with the top riders and everything. And of course, Johnny Ray had a lot to say about it, you know, because he was the king. And what they do, they I think they pulled some revs out of the Ducati, or fuel restrictions, I think it was, which forced Ducati to adjust their maps.
Yeah, different fuel mappings, engine mappings to give a little bit less performance, so that they have a little bit balance. So yeah, there's ways to do it with baffles and the air ducts, things like that, so they have less airflow or less fuel overall to use. Yeah, it's interesting how they try to balance everything. They try to make it as even as possible, but there's always, each bike has their own unique characteristic, you know, that you might have a little bit better braking, a little bit better turning, but it seems like Ducati is great on acceleration and braking, and it turns just fine. So
and the argument was always that, at least from my perspective, is that Ducati, you know, was suited more to like the horsepower tracks that had longer straights and things like that, and then, you know, tracks that had more of like tighter infields and things they weren't so suited to. But that doesn't seem to be the case now. They're doing well anywhere. I mean, just the last Superbike race, you know, all the Ducatis were awesome.
Yeah, and they got some great riders. You know, I really like Jorge Martin. I think he's super fast, you know, setting lap records and qualifying, but he does not have the what's the word? He's too inconsistent. He crashes out when he's in the lead because he's pushing too hard for too long. Or
was that first lap, I think?
Yeah, it was a few laps in, but he got really hurt in Portugal, and that took him out for like half the season. So
Yeah.
it seems like a common trend that he's super fast, but he's crashing too much. Like a guy like Enea Bastianini, I think it's right that he got the Ducati seat, the factory Ducati seat, because it was between Jorge and him. And at first I was like, is that really the right decision? But Enea's won like 4 races now.
Yeah, you
So
look at the consistency of the two riders. Yeah.
yeah, so I think in the end it probably was a good decision, but he's definitely on my radar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who's on your radar? Anybody you're looking at or you seeing coming up, you like got your eye on?
As far as up and comers, or like people that are new to the series, I, I don't think I have anyone in particular that like I'm really kind of interested in watching. I was really excited about uh, Bautista coming back to Aruba.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I love seeing people on social media like bagging on him when he announced that he was coming back. I love an underdog. I love it. And I think he struggled when they made adjustments to the Ducati in that first season, and he started crashing a lot. He had a hard time adjusting to that, and then he goes over to Honda, and that was obviously not awesome for him. And he had a lot of hard times with that. And coming back to Ducati, I was really, really hopeful that he was gonna do well, and he smashed everybody's expectations, and I absolutely love that. Toprak Razgatlioglu is one of my favorite riders, but I do love seeing him get a little frustrated this season. I like seeing the guys that have always been cool, calm, collected, and consistent. I like seeing those guys get a little shaken up and then seeing where they go with it. Still to this day, Johnny Ray is my favorite rider. Across MotoGP, anywhere else, I love Jonathan Ray. After reading Dream, Believe, Achieve, his work ethic is second to none. I love the way he thinks about racing. I love the way he goes about it, and how he applies that to everything in his life.
Dream,
But
Believe, Achieve.
Achieve,
Writing
yep.
it down.
Yeah, absolutely, absolute must read. Awesome
I'm gonna get
book.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jonathan Ray, he's a super nice, very eloquent, he can speak well, type of rider. He's if he makes a mistake, he apologizes right away. He's like, "Yep, I did it." He's no BS kind of rider.
yeah,
And Toprak, Jonathan Ray and Toprak were teammates, I think, at the Suzuka 8
yep,
hour endurance race. And yeah, so Toprak has learned directly from Jonathan and vice versa
yeah,
now. And Toprak is like one of the most ridiculous breakers in the world. Like it used to be Dovizioso, and then
yeah.
I think Toprak has got Dovi beat, at least with the style points.
Definitely with style points.
It's wild. He'll
Definitely
get
with style
that rear
points.
tire like 4 feet off the ground. Not normally, but he's
Yeah.
just it's all over the place, and he's able to control it and be turning into the corner while his tire's off the ground. It's like, what are you doing? What controls do you have on this bike to be able to do that?
It's, I think it's just like developing feel is like one of the most challenging things for me. And I think why developing feel has been one of the most challenging things for me is because I haven't spent a lot of time on a lot of different bikes, and just being on the track, being on the bike all the time. And I think that's something that he does. He's always doing something. He's always on some sort of, if it's not a motorbike, it's a jet ski or something like that. And he's never not doing something crazy on it. So he's always kind of pushing that. So I think his level of feel, even though he's not uh, he's not first in the championship right now. He's not first in the points. Like I think out of between like him, Ray, and Bautista, like his feel and control for the bike is just second to none. And and I think the places where he kind of makes mistakes and stuff, is where he's kind of hitting the limits of the bike right now this year.
Yeah, and he just Top Rank just crashed out at was it Argentina, going for the lead, fighting with Bautista, almost took Bautista out, but
That was wild.
it was so close. I'm like, oh no, but you know, he Bautista kept it up and kept going, and I think stormed away to a victory. But it's just wild, you know. Yeah, to see Top Rank crash and then come back the next race and be fighting for the podium again, it's great. And you know, a crash like that, I always think about soccer. I used to play soccer for like 12 years.
Mhm.
So, but soccer players, they stub their toe and they're flailing and they're injured and they're making such a big scene. Top Rank
You
just
got to
crashed out
bring
at-
the stretcher out because you rolled your ankle.
Top Rank crashes at 80 miles an hour, doesn't even stop for a second, and sprints to his bike and finishes the race. I'm like,
Yep.
it's just a different level of human, I think.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it's also the environment too, right?
Yeah.
Because if the environment allows for that, then human nature is just gonna go that thing, right? Bruce Lee said, like, be like water, right? So
Yeah.
if the cup is shaped like this, then we're just gonna lay at the bottom and kind of hang out. But if the cup is tight and restrictive, we're gonna find a way to form to that. And I don't, you can't be like that in this sport, I don't think.
You don't have time to wallow in your own pity or shame at the side of
Yeah.
the track. The race is going on. They're not stopping it for you. In a soccer game, you could potentially get a penalty called because of that injury, right? Is that
Yeah.
the idea?
Yeah. And maybe that's the case. Yeah, they kind of use that to I don't know, get some kind of, you know, movement on the field or something like that in their favor or against the other team. And, you know, maybe that's part of the tactics of the game, or that's how the game's developed. But yeah, in racing, you know, it's pirate rules: fall behind, get left behind.
Yep. I like that. I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah, well, that was a term we used when we go out to Waikiki when I first got to Hawaii, when I first moved out there. We're like, we doing pirate rules tonight? Yeah, pirate rules.
I'm going to try to use that because doing a lot of mountain biking with friends and stuff, and maybe you don't know all the people in it so well in your little group, or maybe you do. But I remember there'd be times where I'd be leading and I don't like to stop. Like, people like to stop and drink water and like catch their breath. And I'm like, in a race, you can't stop. So I
No.
have this race mentality. Like, I'm training for racing. And some guy said once to me, he's like, you're a shitty leader. I'm like, you're a shitty follower. Like,
Yeah,
what are you supposed to say? Like,
movement is
yeah.
life. We gotta go.
Like, we didn't say this was a no drop ride. Like, I'm just going and I'll meet you at the end, you know?
Yeah. As long as there's other people on the ride and like it's, you know, somewhat safe or whatever. But yeah, it's you can't. Sorry, my headphones keep popping out.
It's all good.
Yeah, like, you know, like what you mentioned about Kayla. You know, she got injured and, you know, didn't really stop to take a break. Just kind of kept going and kicked ass.
For sure. So, what's on your mind today? Is there anything you wanted to talk about?
I don't know. That's pretty much about it. I think you know, kind of going back to talking about like control riding and coaching and stuff. I think sorry, I have to piece this thought together. A bit of ADHD, sorry.
That's all good.
So yeah, we were talking about like control riding and stuff like that, and I think one of the things that that I really like about like certain coaches that I've come across and certain people I've come across in the community, you know, and you know, again, that disparity between like, you know, motorsports, motorcycles specifically, and, you know, like soccer or football or anything like that, is that, you know, that the speed is kind of like ingrained into the whole culture. So that's where we kind of get that, like, oh, I fell, got to get up and get back out and get after it. And I think, you know, for any motorbike rider, You know, even people who might be, you know, listening to the podcast and, you know, watching videos who they've never been out to race, they've never been out to the track, they've never even considered it. You know, having your coaches and stuff like that kind of get out there in the community and do what they can to draw people in is hugely beneficial, because we think it's a lot more scary than it is until we get out there, you know.
Yeah. That's a big thing, is the fear.
yeah.
A lot of people say, I say, oh, I ride motorcycles. I said that to somebody recently, like, oh, death machines? Like,
Yeah.
sure, yep.
Right. You know, oh, you're a motorbike rider. Oh, you're an organ donor. Right.
Yeah, that's irritating.
Yeah. And it's silly, because, you know, that falls in, you know, with me to the same category of people who say, you know, oh, I could never get a motorcycle. I'd get in trouble, or I'd kill myself, or whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, if you're an idiot, you know, or, you know, if you have really, really bad luck. But you know, everything comes with some form of risk. You know, football players, they go out there and they sustain massive head trauma, you know, you know, their career could be over just as quickly as it started. But I think it's important to get out there. The fear is a huge thing to overcome. And the other thing is ego. All of us have a bit of ego, and it affects us in different ways. And I think the worst way you could let your ego affect you is to cut you off from growth.
Yeah.
And dropping that ego and getting out into the track and open yourself up to what people have to say, and even to the point of, like, you know, reaching out for help, is hugely important. And that's something that I didn't learn until about a year into racing.
Yeah.
I think I had a conversation. I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to pit next to Mark Rhodes.
Oh yeah,
Out of the CVMA round. He came out with Gilly Man. They came out, Dustin Etgar. They came out in this massive chateau. And then it was really cool. We got to hang out with those guys, and we were drinking, and you know, I remember wanting to ask the guy so many questions, wanting to ask Dustin so many questions about racing and, you know, things like that, because it was a Friday. We just practiced, and, like, I had an absolute crap day. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I think it was like my third or fourth race. And we started drinking. It was Buddy's birthday party, and I said something just monumentally that I, at the time, I felt was monumentally stupid, but, like, I didn't know what his response was going to be, and his response just completely shocked me. And I said something about tire pressures. Oh, he asked me, he said, oh, well, what tire pressure you running, or something like that. It was one of those conversations, and I think he was kind of baiting me a little bit. And I said, oh, something cold. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, cold. And he goes, what is that? I said, what? And he goes, and he looks at me, and he looks at my bike, and he goes, I don't even know what language you're speaking right now. What are you saying? He goes, no. He goes, you take the warmers off. What's the pressure? And it just, like, I forget how he put it. Like, his delivery was just so, because, like, at first I was kind of like, huh? And I felt really stupid. And then he said it, and it was kind of like, it was very abrasive, but it was a huge eye opener. And then we started getting into more conversations after we broke the ice, and, like, I got over that feeling stupid about not knowing something that maybe I should have known then, or maybe it was just my terminology or something like that. And we ended up talking for a couple hours about, you know, about bikes and racing, and what to do and what not to do, and hugely helpful. And I, you know, stuff like that, connections like that, and, you know, chance encounters like that you get at the track, I don't think you really find anywhere else, because we you know, yeah, it's dangerous, you know, we talk about the organ donor thing, or the death machine thing, or whatever, and it's not that cut and dry, but it is dangerous. And you know, having conversations with people like that, and being very unabashed about the way you say things, and the way you convey information, is super important, but we also have to be able to receive that information, ready to receive that information. And man, ego is a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
Huge thing.
And you don't even need to know how to change a tire if you go to the racetrack. Like I didn't know when I first went, and I would just try to do it myself. Like I saw him do it. Let me try to do that myself. I'm YouTube certified, mechanic. So I looked it up on YouTube. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try it. And then I was at Autobahn Country Club, I think, for my first tire change, and over in Joliet, Illinois, and just right behind the bike, struggling with it for probably a half hour, 45 minutes until someone comes over like, do you need some help? Like, yes, please. I don't know what I'm doing. And then he's
out
like,
there looking like a fool with the spoons and shit.
Yeah, well, not even like putting the tire on. Just I had taken the tire off just fine. Putting it back on, I had it mounted by the tire guy, but putting it on to putting the rim onto the
Get it back onto
motorcycle.
the bike.
Getting it back onto the bike was the hard part for me. So just getting the rear caliper in there just right so it doesn't fall out, and holding it up just enough and sliding the axle through. And you got to kind of put it in perfectly, otherwise it's never going to go.
Yeah.
With all the spacers and all that. So I think that's when I met Steve Palella, and he helped me out so much, and he became one of my mentors. And like, yeah, you just sometimes you got to be a little bit humbled, and he does it in like 45 seconds. It takes me 45 minutes to not even get it done. So, but that's how you learn.
Sometimes it takes, and it takes that situation for a lot of us too, where we hit a wall trying to figure something out, and maybe somebody, your pit neighbor or something like that sees you struggling and is like, hey bud, do you need a hand? And that's something I always look out for when I went to the track, even before I started control riding, just looking out for people who might look a little bit new, that are kind of in my bubble there in the pit. And like, if I see them struggling with something, maybe go over and offer some help. Or if I hear, them saying something that might be contrary to what I've learned and what's worked for me, maybe go over and have a conversation about it. And, more often than not, it kind of brought up some questions to myself with my own riding that I was having to go out and seek out information and, figure out. But yeah, I think it's good to have people. You got to have people like that in the racing community. And track community, we have an overabundance of that. People who are out there and looking out for each other and looking to help out, because, at the end of the day, we all get out on the track together. And if you're out there with your tire, your wheel on backwards or something like that, or, maybe you, I'm not saying that I've done this, but maybe you have another set of rims that has a thicker front brake caliper, and when you swap that rim on, you didn't bleed out any fluid, or you didn't spread your pads or something like that. So now the front brakes are just binding on it, and then you go out for a warm-up lap for your race, and you got to touch the front brake and you flip over and crash and red flag the race before it even happens. Not that I've ever done that.
Yeah. Talking about helping people, I recently went to Gingerman Raceway over at South Haven, Michigan, west side of Michigan, and did some coaching for STT, Sport Bike Track Time. And there was a gentleman next to me with his father who had been paralyzed, and he was riding that day. It was like a 5 p.m. till dusk type of bike night at the track. And they asked me, said, hey, do you mind helping catch or release if you're not coaching somebody? So I couldn't do the catching, but I helped out with the release. So he was paralyzed from the waist down, unfortunately, from a street motorcycle crash. And but he was out there riding, and it was amazing that he had his unique setup where he had magnets on the bottom of his boots. Hopefully I'll podcast with him in the next month or two, but he had magnets on his boots to keep his feet on the foot pegs in the right spot. And then he would strap his legs to the tank and with like a really strong Velcro. So he was not moving his butt off the seat, but he could move his upper body just fine. And he had different hand controls. And they would take down the front stand, take the warmers off, and then I would take down the rear stand and hold him. And then we would make sure there's nobody coming. And then he would put it in first gear and just take off like pretty quick, not a slow takeoff, so that he'd have, some gyroscopic force in
Some
the
balance, yeah.
wheels and some balance. And man, it was awesome.
That's so cool.
And he was in advanced. He's a racer. He's I think doing the full WERA endurance series with another 3 other paralyzed people or some sort of injured riders. So
Yeah.
they've created a handicap
That's
team,
incredible.
and it was awesome to see. And I was out there in advance and just doing my own thing for one of the sessions. And I was looking at this rider. I was like, he's like getting his butt off the seat. What is he doing? I need to talk to this guy. I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Holy crap! He's getting it. He was going fast,
Yeah.
and I was impressed. Like you can't have perfect body position, but you got to modify as you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially any kind of injury. Even just simple, like Marc Marquez was a good example. Right before he had his last surgery, he was trying to kind of like adapt to that injury and try to work around it. But for him at that level, obviously it wasn't just working out. But yeah, I've got a buddy who he got into a really bad wreck some years ago on his way to the track, hit by a drunk driver who jumped on the freeway going the wrong way.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I think he had a couple of bikes in the back of the truck and just sent them flying full to the truck. He's since had to have his foot amputated, but he's still faster than most of the people we ride with out on the track.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got his carbon fiber appendage and adjusted the controls and everything to make it work. And yeah, still goes out there and gets it. And then stuff like that is super inspiring too. I mean, when you see that in the sport, and that just feeds back into the, well, I fall down and I bump my elbow, but like, get up and get back on the bike.
Yeah, and that's got to be a huge weight savings too, right?
A little carbon fiber and titanium, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Now you don't need to lose weight.
Yeah, I'd probably save 15-20 pounds with that.
I'll bet.
So that's about hour 15 or so. We probably wrap this up here. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on I don't post much on YouTube anymore. I posted a couple of races on YouTube and some things from the track from when I was control routing. You can find that on Bad Dog Rides. And then my Instagram is mainly where I'm most active, and that's I am Jason Anthony.
Okay.
Right now, you're going to see mostly on my Instagram, maybe a little car stuff, watches. I'm a bit of a watch fanatic. So that's about it. Trying to do a little bit of traveling before I go back to school.
Very good. Well, thanks for coming on and talking to me for about an hour or so, and I'll get this edited and posted. Just be sure to share it when it comes out.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, and I'll see you at the racetrack.
Yes, sir.
All right, bye-bye.